Ananda put his palms together, bowed and said to the Buddha, having heard the Buddha's unbounded, greatly compassionate, pure, everlasting, true and actual expression of Dharma, I still have not understood the sequence for releasing the knots such that when the six are untied, the one is gone also. I only hope you'll be compassionate and once again take pity on this assembly and on those of the future by bestowing the sounds of Dharma on us and wash and rinse away our heavy defilements. Then upon the lion's throne the thus come one straightened his nirvana robes, arranged his sangati, took hold of the table made of the 7 gems, reached out onto the table with his hand, and picked up a flowered cloth given him by the Suyama god. Then as the assembly watched, he tied it into a knot and showed it to Ananda, asking, "What is this called?" Ananda and the great assembly answered together, "It's called a knot." Then the thus come one tied another knot in the cloth of layered flowers and asked Ananda again, "What is this called?" Ananda and the great assembly once again answered together, "It too is called a knot." He continued in this pattern until he had tied 6 knots in the cloth of layered flowers. As he made each knot, he held it up to Ananda and asked, "What is this called?" And each time, Ananda and the great assembly answered the Buddha in the same way, "It is called a knot." The Buddha said to Ananda, "When I first tied the cloth, you call it a knot. Since the cloth of layered flowers is basically a single strip, how can you call the second and third ties knots as well?" Ananda said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, this cloth of woven layered flowers is just one piece, but as I consider it, when the thus come one makes one tie, it is called a knot. If he were to make 100 ties, they would be called 100 knots. How much the more so with this cloth, which has exactly 6 knots, not 7 or 5. Why does the thus come one allow me to call only the first knot a knot, and not the second or third ties?" The Buddha told Ananda, "You know that this precious cloth of flowers is basically one strip, but when I made 6 ties in it, you said it had 6 knots. As you carefully consider this, you will see that the substance of the cloth is the same. It is the knots that make the difference. What do you think? The first knot I tied was called number 1, continuing until I come to the 6th knot, and as I now tie it, it is also number 1? No, world-honored one. If there are 6 knots, the 6th knot can never be called number 1. In all my lives of learning, with all my understanding, how could I now confuse the names of 6 knots?" The Buddha said, "So it is. The 6 knots are not the same. Consider their origin. They are created from the one cloth. To confuse their order will not do. Your 6 sense organs are also like this. In the midst of ultimate sameness, conclusive differences arise." The Buddha said to Ananda, "You certainly dislike these 6 knots and would like there to be just one cloth, but how can that be done?" Ananda said, "As long as these knots remain, there will be grounds for argument about what is and what is not. Their very existence will lead to such distinctions as this knot not being that knot, and that knot not being this one. But if on this day the thus come one unties them all, so that no knots remain, then there will be no this and no that. There will not even be something called one. How much the less can there be 6? The Buddha said, "When the 6 are untied, the one is gone. is the same meaning, because from beginningless time, your mind and nature have been made wild and rebellious. You have produced false knowledge and views. This falseness continues to rise without respite, and the wearisomeness of these views brings about objective dust. It is just like strange flowers appearing when your eyes grow weary of staring. They arise at random, without any cause, within the tranquil, essential brightness. Everything in the world, the mountains, the rivers, and the great earth, as well as birth, death, and nirvana, is all just a strange weariness, the upside-down appearance of flowers. Ananda said, this weariness is the same as the knots. How do we untie them? The thus come one took hold of the knotted cloth and pulled on its left end, and asked Ananda, is this the way to untie it? No, world-honored one. Then with his hand he pulled on the right end, and again asked Ananda, is this the way to untie it? No, world-honored one. The Buddha said to Ananda, now I've pulled on the left and right ends of the cloth, and still have not been able to undo the knots. What method do you propose for untying them? Ananda said to the Buddha, world-honored one, you must untie the knots from their center, then they will come undone. The Buddha said to Ananda, so it is, so it is. If you want to get them undone, you have to untie them from the center. Ananda, the Buddha Dharma, I explain, arises from causes and conditions, but that is not to grasp at the mixing and uniting of cause appearances in the world. The thus come one understands all worldly and world-transcending phenomena, and knows their fundamental causes and what conditions bring them into being. This is so to the extent that I know how many drops of rain fall in as many worlds away from here as there are dust motes in the Ganges. The same is true for all the things you can see. Why the pine is straight, why the brambles are twisted, why the goose is white, why the crow is black. I understand the reasons. Therefore, Ananda, you can select whichever one of the 6 sense organs you wish. If the knots of the sense organs are removed, then the defiling appearances disappear of themselves. All falseness ceases to be. If that is not the truth, what do you expect in addition to it? Ananda, I now ask you, can the 6 knots in the cloth of layered flowers be untied simultaneously and released all at once? No, well-honored one. The knots were originally made one at a time. Now they must be untied one at a time. The substance of the 6 knots is the same, but they were not made simultaneously, and so now when it is time to release them, how can they be untied simultaneously? The Buddha said, releasing the 6 sense organs is the same way. When the sense organs begins to be released, one realizes the emptiness of people first. When the nature of that emptiness is fully understood, then one is released from phenomena. Once one is freed from phenomena, neither kind of emptiness will arise. This is called the patience with non-production attained by the bodhisattvas by means of samadhi. Upon receiving the Buddha's instruction, Ananda and the Great Assembly gained wisdom and awareness that was perfectly penetrating and free of doubt and delusion. All at the same time, they placed their palms together, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and he said to the Buddha, today our bodies and minds are illumined, and we are happily free from obstruction. We have understood the meaning of the ending of the 6 and the 1. Still we have not yet gone through the fundamental, perfect, penetration. World-honored one, we who have floated and floundered our way through aeon after aeon, homeless and orphan, had no idea. We never imagined that we could meet with the Buddha in such a close relationship. We are like lost infants who have suddenly found their compassionate mother. Because of this, we accomplished the way in this assembly. Yet the secret words which we received are the same as our basic enlightenment, and so it is the same as if we hadn't even heard them. We only wish the greatly compassionate one will bestow upon us the profound secret as a does come one's final instruction. After saying this, he prostrated himself, withdrew, and held himself ready for the secret opportunity as he awaited the Buddha's hidden transmission.